Today's dedication is for Zahn, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Zoraline Cosmos Caller versus Kervik, Mabel, and Chatterfang. The Chatterfang popularity continues. We have both of our colours and stuff to do in the early game. I don't think this is incredible, but it's also not bad enough to ship back. Shizo on turn 1 for Chatterfang, and Mabel plays a Springleaf Drum. Alright, a Polluted Delta can likely send us in for a Surveil land. Dorothy Voidwalker, yeah, I mean it's good enough to just have him play and exile our opponent's stuff, so we'll keep that on top, maybe play it next turn. Chatterfang plays Golgari Signet. In your green decks, do you run the Signets and the Mana Rocks in general, as opposed to Farseek and Rampant Growths and cards like that? I always lean towards Land Ramp as opposed to Artifact Ramp in green decks. Anyway, a bounce land for the Boros player. Footlight Fiend, a Devil. Deals 1 damage to any target when it dies. And let's go for the Bounty Agent, just to get Summoning Sickness away from that. It's a Vigilance creature, so we might be able to start swinging in with it quite comfortably next turn. Chatterfang allowed into play thanks to the Golgari Signet. Hasn't made a land yet for turn 3. Mouse Trapper is the first mouse from the tribal deck. And the Rakdos player shows us a Wayfarer's Bauble. Looks like he's going for cracking that straight away. Didn't know there was a Lord of the Rings version of this. Anyway, decides not to swing in for obvious reasons, so maybe go for our commander here. We've got another land there if we want. Might be a little bit early for Agadeem's Awakening. Or it might be an idea to go for the Dire Sight just to look at more cards, because we could maybe dump something in the bin to actually make use of Zoraline when it enters. I forgot this is an enter the battlefield effect as well. So this is a sorcery. We'll go for it now. And there we see a Generous Gift and an Arcane Signet as well. Yeah, I think I'm okay for going the Generous Gift, so let's put that in the graveyard. Signet can stay on top, we'll draw 2. Keeps us at 7 cards in hand, including another land, so we can keep hold of the Agadeem's Awakening. Go through to combat the Bounty Agent, we might as well swing in to the right. Or it's 1 damage to any target, not a player, so maybe not a good idea actually. We'll keep hold of Bounty Agent and just not swing in. Scoot Swarm before making any other lands here. And does manage to make one this turn. So gets both an insect and a squirrel. So maybe, yeah, depending on what our opponents play, it might be worth actually just going slow and setting up for a living death. Because I imagine if we blow up the Chatterfang, they're not going to put it in the graveyard unless maybe they've got some reanimation in the deck. Obviously we don't want commanders and creatures in the graveyard if we're going for living death and just going to bring it all back. But could use that as a board wipe. And there we see Mabel as well, so not as likely that we're going to see the Kervik. It would take a decent amount of fast mana, but yeah, could have a mana vault or something I suppose. Anyway, gets the Crag Flame equipment straight onto the commander. So Haste, Trample and Vigilance. Decides not to swing in at all, curiously. Would have thought he'd go in at the Rakdos player there. Bloodgift Demons, so maybe we've got Demons and Devils over here. Maybe a thematic deck. So I think we'll leave the Bounty Agent alone at the moment. Might be that this is holding players back from hitting us. We're not going to be using the Living Death anyway, anytime soon. Could have our opponents empty their hands before we start making use of that. That's an interesting one. Ripples of Undeath. So let's go Caves of Koilos, Arcane Signet, and then let's try out this Ripples of Undeath. Might be useful if we do go for the Living Death next turn. And then depending on what our opponent does next turn, we might want to respond to anything that Chatterfang does by blowing it up. Well, he hasn't played a land yet, so we'll assume that he's not going to. Growing Rites of Itlamok needs 7 creatures, is it? Oh no, it's only 4 creatures. Alright, well, we want to definitely make sure that that doesn't flip if we can help it. Might be able to get into a Mana Dork or something here. If he does have a Mana Dork, he'll be able to play it and still flip the Growing Rites of Itlamok into a Gaia's Cradle, so might dictate whether or not we blow up the Chatterfang or not. It's a squirrel mob that he goes for though, so can't afford it here, thankfully. Alright, so Growing Rites of Itlamok on the stack, and you can change values on the stack, so I hope I haven't left it too late now, but blow up the Chatterfang in response to that, and should fizzle the Growing Rites of Itlamok trigger. Hopefully. Alright, so Chatterfang does go back to the command zone. And yeah, the value does change on the stack, so not flipping round the enchantment Hammer of Nazan, a very good one for the Mabel player, so we'll assume that this is going to be a Voltron build with some mice that can hang out in the background and be decent blockers. Thankfully, with Living Death we can get around Indestructible, so it is going to be a good time to cast it, I think. 6/4 Haste, Indestructible, Trample, Vigilance. And the Chatterfang player has lost connection to the game. It is noteworthy that I've got more to say on this topic actually, but I might just make a separate video about it altogether. I'm part of Daybreak Games, the Content Creators Program, which means that I get an account, a separate account, that has every single card on it, apart from like the Warhammer 40k ones. There's some exceptions, but the vast majority of cards are 100% available for me to make any deck that I could ever wish for. Point being that means that my previous ban list is not active on here. I don't know if there's a means of me like transferring it over from my previous account. I suppose I could just do it manually somehow. Not that it matters anyway, because no matter how many people we ban, there's always early scoopers, so looks like this guy's gone and he didn't even decide to concede beforehand. And that sets off chain reaction, so that player scoops as well. Awesome. It's not a problem on Magic Online though, otherwise more people would be talking about it. Commander Sphere from the Rakdos deck. Sky Scanner as well, draws a card when it enters. And I'm assuming that he pointed... yeah, he must have pointed the life gain at himself from the Blood Gift Demon. So hopefully we get an interesting game here. I know that there was some interest shown in the recent poll that I did, saying that they want to see Dual Commander. And I know this isn't Dual Commander, but it is turning out to be a 1v1. Alright, drawn into a dam, so let's see what we get with Ripples of Undeath first. We might be able to reanimate some stuff. Alright, we've milled a Plains, a Tainted Field, and a Karlov, which we can reanimate, so yeah, I don't think we need to bother paying any life into that, to be honest, unless we want to guarantee a land for next turn. Yeah, we're at 31, I won't bother. Just take the free mill here. Another thing we could do is go for Dorothy Voidwalker, and then go for the Dam, exiling this stuff so that we could gain control of a Blood Gift Demon or something. I think I'll just go for the Living Death. So when the devil dies, it's 1 damage likely to our face here. Yep. We get to wipe the board and reanimate the Bounty Agent and the Karlov. Nykthos got rid of our opponent's Devotion in just the nick of time, although they only had Devotion to black of 3. Everflowing Chalice, kicking that multiple times, ready to try and get the commander down. That will tap for 3 mana, and then sacking the Commander Sphere to draw a card, so staying at 5. Well, hopefully we can start getting into some life gain soon. Draw into a swamp, so good job we didn't take the life to the Ripples of Undeath previously. Mill 3 cards and see if there's anything of relevance here. And Animate Dead, Night's Whisper, and Lurrus of the Dream Den. Speaking of life gain, I'd probably rather have that in hand than in the graveyard. Could reanimate it with our commander, but then we've got to deal with a finality counter. So let's say yes to that and grab back the Lurrus. And play a land for the turn. And I don't think there's still much point in going for Zoraline. Let's just play Dorothy Voidwalker. And if our opponent doesn't get into a land next turn, we could keep him off his commander by blowing up the Everflowing Chalice. Probably, yeah, he probably does get into a land, but we can blow up his commander with a Dam anyway, so yeah, play the Lurrus. And let's start swinging in. This is a kind of Soul Sisters, Hate Bears type deck that I've built here. There are some bats in here for triggering the attacks on Zoraline, but I don't think there's too many, maybe about 5. Of course, we can get rid of the commander with the Bounty Agent as well, and then recast it every turn with Lurrus, so might put our opponent in a bit of a bind. He did make a land, so getting rid of Everflowing Chalice wouldn't have kept him off the Kervek. Orcus, Prince of Undeath. Each other creature gets -X/-X until the end of the turn, and you lose X life. I'm guessing that's going to be 2, because it will just blow up everything. And yep, it is the minus ability, so might as well go for destroying Orcus. But we'll still get the debuffs on our stuff. Although we do have access to an Orcus ourselves now, thanks to the Dorothy Voidwalker seeing that hit play. Or seeing it get destroyed, I mean. Alright, a Dark Confidant is going to help refill our opponent's hand, but potentially lose a lot of life as well to that. So we could just go for 3 mana into X on this. We'll grab 2 creatures back, including Lurrus and a 2-drop, and then maybe hardcast a 2-drop if we've got enough mana. We'd need a land here, I think. Alright, Necropotence, can't really complain at. There's a Liliana Dreadhorde General, which I don't mind seeing either. A Dowsing Dagger. We could play Dowsing Dagger with the Lurrus. I'm very much liking this Ripples of Undeath. I wasn't sure if I would like it or not, but yeah, we'll take 3 more life to grab back a Lily, and then just play the Lily and tick it down, I think. If our opponent has haste available to him, then so be it. Hopefully we'll be able to get into some actual life gain sometime soon. Obviously, milling through the deck with this enchantment is going to get us closer to the cards that we want, although our Soul Sister strategy isn't as good once a couple of other players have left the table. Angrath's Rampage. Sacrifice a Planeswalker. Well, we've got the answers back and forth for each other, haven't we? It is like a classic 1v1 game, this. And there we see Kervek the Merciless. So that might have to be a dam, because that takes the minimum amount of damage. Only 2 mana on a dam. Alright, Swiftfoot Boots, and we mill. That is a Heliod the Suncrowned, a land, and a Golem, Obsessed Stalker. I mean, we're not gaining any life at the moment, unfortunately, so I'll have to say no to that. Now, let's cast ourselves a dam onto the Kervek. See if they leave this in the bin or not, because we do have Animate Dead and Lurrus available to us. 2 damage to us before the Kervek goes down. Does go back into the command zone. So in that case, let's play a Zoraline. And we've obviously got the Orzhov mana held up, so go for... Do we just go for the Dowsing Dagger? And try and flip it round next turn? Then when we swing in, we can maybe go after Lurrus next turn? Yeah, let's go for the Dowsing Dagger. Our opponent's going to get a couple of plant tokens, but hopefully that won't be of any relevance. When you transform these, you don't have them leave play, I don't think, do you? Hopefully that's not going to be relevant with a finality counter on it. A Reaver Titan, thankfully didn't give them any power in order to crew that. Followed up by Plague and Nasari. Alright, a Mesmeric Orb. I don't think I'm in any particular rush to play, to be honest. See what we mill. That was a Smothering Tide, not as good in 1v1. And a Dark Star Augur with a fairly low life total, although it is another bat. I think maybe just trying to set up for Living Death might be the play. So we will say no. Equip Dowsing Dagger to Zoraline, and this doesn't have reach or anything. They are going to be able to crew it next turn though, so that might be something to be wary of. Attack in, and we could... Yeah, we could go after the... It's done some work for us this game, I think. The Bounty Agent, in order to get rid of this thing so that they don't get the card advantage. They've got 0 cards in hand now. They'll have to recast their commander in order to animate this. Yeah, and then we can Cathar Commando it anyway. Yeah, I think that's the play here. Although Bounty Agent won't have haste, will it? Because we'll have spent the mana on Swiftfoot Boots. But Cathar Commando, we either spend 3 mana on Cathar Commando or 3 mana on playing equipped with Swiftfoot Boots, so yeah, I think we just have to go for some reanimation here. And let's just make it the Bounty Agent. We're not going to be able to make use of it straight away. But Cathar Commando onto the vehicle is going to be the play, I think. Oh, actually, does this doesn't come into play tap, does it? So I think we might be able to have 3 additional mana here. Assuming that the whole finality counter isn't of any relevance. Don't think you exile them and bring them back into play. These are transform cards. Apparently not, so the fatality or finality counter stays on, and it does come into play untapped as well, because it never left play and it hasn't been tapped down. So that means we can afford the Swiftfoot Boots, play and equip onto the Bounty Agent, and we can afford the Cathar Commando and Reaver Titan getting blown up, which works out very nicely. So let's get rid of their Plague and Nasari. Does mean that we had to give up on the Bounty Agent with the finality counter on it. And Cathar Commando does have flash, so we'll play that at instant speed. Hopefully can start making some use out of Lurrus next turn. So there we see Kervek again, as you would expect. I'll play the Cathar Commando now before it lands. It is showing our opponent what we've got, instead of having them use the crew cost on this. But they might want to force the issue, force us to blow up the Cathar Commando. Alright, in Knight's Whisper, draw 2, lose 2. And they go for the crew anyway. Oh, of course, it has protection, doesn't it? Mana value 3 or less. Alright, so we're taking a big hit here. I mean, there was nothing we were going to do about that anyway. So we need a bigger spell to deal with that thing. 5 damage to each opponent when it attacks, and then we can't even block the thing, so we go down to 4. So let's see if there's anything at all we can do here. Anguished Unmaking won't do it either. We go down to 1 if we made use of this. There's a patch up, which is decent if we've got some Soul Sisters in the graveyard, which we do not at the moment. Fell the Profane would blow up the vehicle. Problem is we can't actually cast anything now, can we, because of this? So it's likely our opponent has us here. We can't Anguished Unmaking onto this thing either because we lose life to that as well. Do we have to hit with this thing whenever it attacks? Okay, so we could give lifelink to this with the Heliod that's in the bin. Might be pretty much the only thing we can do. So let's just do that for the fun of it. It will cost us 2 life to do it though, but we do gain a life from the Zoraline. So go up to 5 and then back down to 3. Zoraline grabs us the Heliod. And then with Heliod in play with a finality counter on it, let's go for lifelink onto Zoraline. And we'll put lifelink onto the Cathar Commando as well. Decided to chump block with the plant token, but we managed to get ourselves back up to 9. I'll just pile the plus counters onto the commander. Yeah, if we had another land, we could go for Anguished Unmaking and still afford to put lifelink on the Zoraline again if we needed to block. We're not blocking this thing either way. I highly doubt we can wriggle out from this. Can't remember how much the commander costs now either, but I think we just need to blow it up regardless. So we'll take 6 life to the Anguished Unmaking thanks to the commander. And if they can afford to replay something that's big enough to crew this, then, well, that's just us done for. Let's also go for sacrificing Cathar Commando to blow this up and deal with some of their mana. And we'll just have to leave it at that and keep our fingers crossed, I think. Do they have 4 power or not? They do. A Chroma, Angel of Fury. So all they have to do here is crew up the Reaver Titan, and down we go to that. So yeah, pretty much the only thing we could have done there was gone for the Fell the Profane, but couldn't have afforded to, 1, grab it out of the bin and also cast it. So I don't think there's too much that we could have done differently there, but it's good gain to my opponent. And an apology to all of you for yet more early scoops in a game, totally skewing it and hopefully not ruining the video, but giving you a slight idea of what Zoraline is played like. Like I said before, I will make a video explaining to you all how I've spoken to Daybreak Games about the early scoops in Commander games on Magic Online and, well, how they just don't care, basically. But we'll leave it there for now. Massive thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel as well. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.